So what's new? I know we were just doing a
What are you
bunch of talking, but I just like our random intros before we actually really get started.
Yeah, what are you drinking, by the way, this morning?
Just some green tea.
Oh, nice.
Just some green tea.
I went for tea this morning too. I went for chai, because I was too lazy to actually make a latte this morning. So
Yeah.
I'm also going with tea this morning.
Yeah, I get into this habit where I'll start drinking too much coffee. I like having like some kind of hot beverage to sip on throughout the day.
Yeah.
Now, green tea definitely has caffeine in it, but like if I'm drinking coffee all day, I'll be buzzing around at 11 o'clock at night. So last week I got back into the bad habit of having a couple Nespresso pods, later in the day. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I got to dial them back. Have like, I have like my drip coffee in the morning with breakfast. Maybe I have an espresso like mid morning. Got to cut that back and go with the green tea just to have something to sip on.
Do you what do you sweeten it? Do you just go straight up? Like, what do you?
Just go straight. Yeah, no, I don't put anything in the tea.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the as a quick side note. I have this sweet camp mug. That is
very nice.
Yeah, it's a cool like mug that you would think you'd have sitting around the campfire. But it's phenomenal at holding the temperature of the beverage. So yeah, like I usually when I make my lattes, I use a little ceramic mug, and if I don't drink it within 10
cools
minutes
immediately.
It's starting to get cold. And even I preheat the mug. Like I'll preheat it with boiling water before I make my drink in it. And even still, like 10 minutes in or so, it's getting cold. But this mug, like I can sip on this tea for an hour or so when it's still hot. It's awesome.
Nice. My mother-in-law does that. She's got her whole like pre-coffee routine.
Yeah.
She'll preheat the mug with boiling water. She'll nuke the mug, and get it all nice and warm, run boiling water through the mug, then make the coffee so it stays hot. Like, I mean, she wants her food, her coffee, all of that like scorching hot. Where I mean, I let it cool just a bit so like I don't burn my tongue and whatnot.
Yeah, I do the same. And in fact, I've been asked within the past couple of weeks about the coffee and about my food videos, and I'll touch on both of them briefly. But on the coffee, you can see my machine behind me. In the morning, it takes 45 minutes to make my cup of coffee.
Okay.
Most of that time is preheating. Which is not entirely necessary, but I heat this thing up for about 40 minutes or so, including the portafilter. So everything is like hot and up to temperature. So all the internal components, all the piping that's going to move the water, I have it at a pretty even. It's heated up. And then I get up and I do similar to your mother-in-law. I fill up my mug with water. I pop it in the microwave for a minute, get it super hot. And then I come and make the drink and clean it all out. And that whole process is like 10 to 15 minutes just to make the first cup. And people are like, oh, it's so long to make a simple cup. Like, just pop in the pot and do it. And I'm like, I know, but man, I found that the process of doing it is so meditative. Like it's my time. Like it's my time to enjoy that time of making the coffee. And it's not a rush to get the cup of coffee made. It's just enjoying that process and each step along the way. And it's interesting that I'm finding that ability to slow down to be so rewarding. So I don't know if you've noticed or not, but on the site, I've started making some videos on YouTube around.
They're awesome.
And one of the playlists I have, I've called The Sound of Food. So I set up my camera, I set up my lights, and I film myself making a meal. No commentary, no talking, just the preparation of the food, the sight, the sound of it. And someone reached out to me like, oh, I love these videos, but how much time is this adding to making a meal? And I'm like, probably double. It's probably doubling the time it takes me to make the meal. But I found that it's so much more enjoyable. usually when I make a meal, it's rushing from step to step and multitasking and helping the kids do that and running and doing this other thing. And it's just a race to get it done and a bunch of other things done. And by the end, I'm like sweating and tired. I'm like, I don't even want to eat. I'm worn out cooking the meal, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like I'm pre-planning it. I'm setting everything up. I'm going through it very meticulously and deliberately, and just the process of slowing it down and enjoying each specific step. I'm like, this is so much more enjoyable. And I'm finding the food more enjoyable because it wasn't like this race to just throw everything together. It was going through each piece and like really putting it together. So yeah, it's been cool.
Yeah, very cool. I've been enjoying the videos. And I mean, it's definitely showing, it gives you a chance to show a different side of you as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that maybe people who have worked with you currently or in the past have not seen.
Yeah, I was surprised because I thought I shared a lot of my culinary experiences, but as I pushed this out, a lot of people are like, I didn't even know you were into cooking. I'm like, what? I started cooking when I was in high school, when I rejected auto shop for culinary arts. But yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I was talking with Carrie at HBR yesterday, and she's like, this is so awesome. Like, why are you doing this? And what was the motivation? And I'm like, I don't know. I just love cooking and sharing it. So
nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And, I think that leads perfectly into what I want to talk about today. Trying to be timely, but the notes I wrote up were just kind of a stream of consciousness with things that people have been dealing with for the last 3 to 4 months. Because we've said it before in previous episodes, and it's even truer now. Like, these times are not normal.
Mm-hmm.
Where like people are stressed out on multiple fronts, and the topic today is being human at work. We've all been conditioned that we need to have some kind of corporate image we have to uphold at work. And thinking about this before we started recording, I think back to the internship I had, which was 20 years ago, and you needed to be prim and polished and proper, and like you couldn't even have facial hair. Guys had to be clean shaven all the time. This was the general manager's role. Like, ultimately his role. Nope, everyone is clean shaven. There were a couple times I came in with, like a little goatee or something like that, and they're like, shave it now. Go into the locker room and shave it. I'm like, really? Like, it wasn't like I was unshaven. It wasn't like anything like that. It was just like I had a little bit of facial hair, and I thought of that, and then I thought of my first job out of college, and there was definitely the strong message of you leave your personal stuff at home. When you come to work, it's about work. You leave whatever's going on in your personal life there, and you come to work. So if we look back at the last couple of months, it's been trying for people on multiple fronts. So if we think back to end of February, beginning of March, we had the start of the COVID-19 pandemic here in the United States. People have been scared, stressed out, and struggling to manage at times. That required corporate office workers to work from home, and not just that, but also work from home where you're not used to doing it. You may not have a dedicated workspace. And you're also homeschooling your kids at the same time. I mean, like that, just the level of stress right there. So like you think about it, like, you had the sounds of family going on in the background of conference calls, stuff that normally wasn't happening. And then you add the recent events, the murder of George Floyd and the resulting protests and demonstrations, that has now further pushed people to break down that stoic corporate image that maybe they've built up over years, for they felt they either they needed to or they've been told to share their personal feelings. Yeah. And you've got these two worlds colliding. I've been told I have to be work Jim or work Jason, and then there's personal Jim and personal Jason. Those two worlds are colliding and they're fighting with each other. Why have we been told that we have to have this corporate image that is devoid of any kind of personal notes? and why can't we share what's going on personally? You know, what are the roots in that? And then ultimately, I want to talk about, you know, as those events, the COVID-19 pandemic, the murder of George Floyd, have pushed people to be much more personal. What's actually happening is people are shedding that corporate facade.
Yeah. So to answer the why, I mean, I'm sure that there have been books and there are probably whole semesters at colleges spent on this very topic. But for me, I think at its very core, it's more of a conversation about the human condition and human struggle than it is about the business world. The business world is a good fit for extending this, and that is that as humans, I think we're constantly fighting the fear of being vulnerable.
Okay.
And as humans, we have this fear of just being who we are. And I think that is just part of the human condition that all of us are fighting against. And we can call it reptilian, we can call it just something that we're born with, but we have this survival mechanism or something in our brain that tells us you need to protect yourself from being vulnerable. And being personal, being a human, being flawed, is human, but it's very fearful. And so because of that, we've developed this idea of a different Jim, a different image, a corporate Jim, a corporate Jason. Mm-hmm. And again, I think you can look back through time and see that this is something that we've struggled with. So I think it's important to kind of spend some time thinking about that and kind of abstracting away from the business world and just kind of pondering on vulnerability for a while, right? And I'm not a religious scholar, and I don't know a ton about the development of religions, although I think was it Alan Watts? I can't remember. There was a book that I read probably 25 years ago about world religions. It was just fascinating. One of the stories that's really interesting is the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And when you think about it, or when I think about it in the sense of vulnerability, you have these humans living in paradise, and all of a sudden they're awoke and they're in front of God. And what happens? They're vulnerable. They're naked, right? That's their mm-hmm. vulnerability. And their first thought is, we need to run and hide. We need to hide our vulnerability. And I think that that's a lot of what we see in the business world with the suits and the clean shaven, and that's hiding, right? That's putting on the fig leaf. That's hiding our vulnerability. Why is it the way it is today? I think it's institutionalized. My grandfather was an executive in a steel mill. He was I don't know about an executive, but he didn't work in the plant. He worked in the business office. He was in an industrial. He analyzed the production line. So a lot of like we gather data and optimize websites. He did that for the steel production line. And it was in the 40s and 50s when he was really at the height of his career, I think. And the whole idea of putting on this corporate image was huge. And I first learned about it in the early 2000s. I was struggling a bit with my first job out of college. And he said, I'm willing to get some money to invest in sending you to charm school. I'm like, what the hell is charm school? So I started looking into it a bit, and maybe they still exist. I don't know. But at the time, at the time when he was in business, it was something businesses would do, that they would send their executives, their people that were white collar workers, to mm-hmm. something called a charm school to teach you how to act, look, and behave in a business office. Right. And it was all about breaking down the self and becoming part of this group of, this is how a business person in a white collar should act. It was a very real thing, and I was shocked by it.
That's awesome. As you're talking, all I could think about is that scene from A League of Their Own, where they get the women's league together, and part of one of the things they're told is, you're going to go to charm school, So, and then they have the scene of them them in charm school as well. So all I could think about is what he went through as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was a thing, and it was interesting. A few years ago, after they had both passed, I was cleaning out their home, and I found all sorts of interesting things, and I found several books on charm and etiquette. And these books, and I'll have to see if I can find a couple of them. It's almost embarrassing how like backwards they are about how you should operate in the workplace. And for a man, it was embarrassing. For a woman, it was just downright like disgusting reading.
Yeah.
Like, really, this is bullshit. Like, how is this a thing? But it was so, I mean, it was ubiquitous. It was so generally accepted that these are the roles you play, right? Mm-hmm. It's not about you as a person, but when you walk through these doors, you play a part. You're acting, right?
Yeah.
And still today, 2020, we're still, we still have pieces of that in the business world, especially some of these older institutions. Like, it's so ingrained in how they work that even though they're rejecting and shunning some of those notions, the artifacts of it are still everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny. You mentioned one thing, and I don't know if you mentioned it on purpose or not, but you talked about the breaking down of the self.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about, like, we're starting off talking about like the why. Why have people been trained that you have to have some kind of work or corporate image? And you made a lot of sense there by saying breaking down the self, because then when you break down the individuality of it, it's you're coming to work and you're just a cog in the wheel.
You're a worker.
You're a worker, and that is it. It only matters about what you produce.
Yeah. I mean, I think these things came about through a lot of thought. I don't think it just organically happened that, the way that we work, and even our school systems, like they all supported a notion of creating an army of workers.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that we did was to support that. And there were probably some good that came out of it, and there's a whole lot of bad that we're trying to undo that came out of it. That, we're not just a resource. We're not a utility that you just plug into the system. We're humans. We are individuals, and to strip away the self and try to make us into clones that just work. And I use that term a lot in some of my old writing. I noticed my first few years out of college, I noticed that I used the term corporate clone a lot. Mm-hmm. Because I saw it, like it was my first exposure to it. Even this was the early 2000s, I saw it. I'm like, this is bizarre to me, and I feel alien, and I feel like I'm not given the opportunity to go to where I want to go in my career because I'm not willing to be a corporate clone. And I kept using that term over and over again, but it's how it was. It's how it is still in lots and lots of places. And I think, we've seen it firsthand because we've rejected that notion. And it definitely, going back to being vulnerable, being who you are means you're vulnerable, right? And that's why we put on the corporate suit and become someone else, is because we don't want to be vulnerable. We question that and force people to be vulnerable. And it's a shock to some people, right? I think once they're able to let that vulnerability surround them, it becomes a beautiful thing. But we've seen several instances in the way that we work where people are like, this is weird. Like, I don't know if I like this. In fact, we've had one story where someone said, we don't do this. Like, you don't talk about, we don't care. Like, if you want to engage in personal conversation later off the clock, that's fine. But when you're at work, you work. We don't talk about how's your day or, how's it going. If we do, then it's just, you say, okay, it's good. Like, there's a script you follow. They're not really asking how you are doing. It's just the script. Go along with the script.
Yeah. So I started thinking about this one company I interviewed with 12 years ago. It was a technology services company over in New Jersey. And when you went there, they had a corporate dress code. Everyone wore suits to work, not just like your business casual, like khakis and some kind of collared shirt. It's you wore a suit to work. And I'm like, and the more I talked about it, I'm like, this feels more like just trying to put on an image instead of like, are we actually doing work here? It's, does it really matter? I have to sit in a suit for 8-9 hours a day. Is my work that much better? Or do you just want the nice, pretty picture that you can send to clients?
Yeah. So I have 2 stories on that, and I may have shared them in the past. I think I may have shared them with you. Maybe I haven't shared them on the podcast. So the first story, again, going back to my very first job out of college, I really struggled with this concept of this, who am I supposed to be? What image am I supposed to portray? And going back to the offer of going to charm school, that came up because I was struggling. I was kind of looked at as an outsider in the group. I wouldn't say I was constantly in trouble, but I was never being recognized, and I was definitely seen as a problem within the team. And I finally broke down and went and talked to the director of the organization, who I've talked about before on this podcast, Paul Bartholomew. Amazing man. Like, he has shaped my career in so many amazing ways. And I sat down, and I can clearly picture his office and how it felt. I sat in the chair across from him, and I said, I don't understand what's happening here. And he said, Jason, there are 2 kinds of leaders in most organizations. There are the I can't remember the word he used, but the proper leaders, like the leaders that have been given the titled leaders. You've been promoted, you've been given the title of leader, and so you're a leader. Those are one type of leaders. And there's another type of leader called a natural leader. They're never given the title of boss, of manager. They're not given HR responsibility. You don't have a budget to hire a team, but the team looks to you and follows your lead. He said, you are a natural leader. And the fact that you're not willing to fall into line and become the corporate clone, that scares this organization. That scares the people in this company, because they see that you're a natural leader. They see that people follow you, and they're scared that they're going to follow you and you're not falling in line with the image they want you to portray. So that was a super interesting conversation to kind of bookend that. And I love this story because I think it has informed a lot of how we work and how we operate. I can't remember the year, but I was at Omniture. I think my first year that I worked at Omniture, I was assigned to the Viacom account, specifically MTV. And they had been an Omniture client for some time before I was put on the account, maybe a year or so. And they had been okay, but Omniture was very interested in growing their relationship with MTV, obviously part of the Viacom family, a huge potential brand. And I was assigned with 2 others in the organization to go out to New York and spend some time with the Viacom team, the MTV team specifically, to build and grow the relationship between the 2 companies. And I clearly remember, again, sitting across from my boss the day before I was to fly out to New York, and him telling me, okay, here's your dress code. Here's your charm school etiquette. Here's how you're to act. Here's how you're to dress. Please cut your hair. Please shave your beard. It was a whole list of things that I needed to do to prepare for this very important trip. Can you take a guess what I did?
You did the complete opposite.
Yeah, I did none of those things. I ignored the dress code he told me. I didn't cut my hair. I didn't shave my beard. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I'm going to be me. If it's a failure, fire me. I can't do it. So we flew out to New York. The 2 other guys I were with, very, very good guys. Our first day, and if you've ever been, have you ever seen the Viacom offices downtown? It's in Times Square.
No, I don't know.
Crazy place. Not my scene, but nonetheless, our first day there, we walk in and meet the team from MTV, and we talk for a while, and they decide, let's give you a tour. Let's meet other people. So I think Cartoon Network, and a whole bunch of other families were there. I have a picture of me sitting in I think it's called the thinking chair. I can't remember the name of the series that it's Blue's Clues, I think.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so I have a picture of me sitting in the Blue's Clues chair because we met the team there. And it was right after that, we were standing around on one of the floors, and a group of people came by, and they came up to the guy that was kind of our chaperone showing us around, and they said, what's going on today? Who are these, what's going on with these people in the building? We know this guy, and they pointed to me, and I had jeans on and a t-shirt. We know this guy works here, but who are these two guys? Because they were in the Omniture dress code. They were dressed up in their tie and their button-down shirt and their slacks. We know this guy works here, but who are these two, right? And it instantly clicked for me, right? Like, and I wasn't trying to be MTV. I wasn't trying to like dress their role. I was just being
you just
me.
fit in.
I just fit in, right? And I don't want to say because of that. I think we did amazing work for them. We ended up massively expanding that brand for Omniture, but I think a part of it was there was some trust there. There's some authenticity. We made that connection. It's like we fit in. We're like you. And to me, that event was really important in my career because it reinforced everything I had thought all the way up to that point. That you can be not only okay, you can be extremely successful at being authentic, being who you are. And I'm not saying that to be flippant and to like say, you shouldn't read the room and you shouldn't read kind of the environment you're going into and have some kind of respect for, tradition and things like that. But I am saying that we shouldn't be wasting our time putting on a suit. And I'm not saying a physical suit, I'm saying a metaphorical suit, a costume, right? We shouldn't be spending so much of our time honing an image of what we think we should be that's going to get more business done. We should just be humans, because it's amazing that when you're human, when you're vulnerable, you realize that everyone else is vulnerable and is a human, and you can bond and connect over that.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I found when you do break down those barriers, what you're able to actually get done. It's one of those things where there's always a point in a project where things get stressful. Like if you want to think of that from that level, there's probably multiple points when it comes to a client relationship where things get a little bumpy. I found when you make an effort to break down that barrier and build that personal connection, it makes those times better. It helps you get through that rocky point in a project. It helps you better get to the point where, say, you do reach that bumpy point in a client relationship. It helps you get through it, and because you've already had those initial conversations that break down those barriers, so it's easier to get to a more genuine conversation about what's going on.
Yeah, I agree, and to even extend that a little further, it's by removing those barriers and having that connection. Not only is it important to ensure that the things we're signing up to do get done, and it helps, at least in our experience, to do that better. There's a spillover effect in which we end up actually caring for the people that we work with. And I think that's one of the outcomes of this that has really crystallized for me in that, we work with businesses. We work with a lot of big businesses, and they ultimately pay for us to do that work. But I've kind of shifted the way we've focused on it, in that we've looked at people before the business. And in fact, I've said this to several of the companies that we work with, is that we're going to make your business successful by making your people successful. And it is so appreciated by the people on the ground because it's an approach they've never seen before. And I was having a very emotional, raw conversation with a couple people at a client that we recently lost, a big travel company that has been hit extraordinarily hard. And I was talking to one of the people we work with there, and she was saying, I'm going to tell everybody that will listen to me what it's like to work with you, because I've never experienced anything like this. It is so amazing, so refreshing. The fact that you care, and I know you care about me and my success and my career, I've never felt that from most people I've worked with, let alone a third party agency. And I'll just never forget that. It's just, I've never had that opportunity. And again, like, we continue to get these experiences where it reinforces this idea that doing business as people, as humans, and connecting and shunning the fact that we're not going to play a part, we're not going to have the dialogue, we're not going to put on the costume, is working. And it's not only working from we're making positive things happen in business. That's fine. To be honest with you, it's not my motivator. I don't get super excited about making companies that make billions of dollars, a few $100 more million. I used to get excited about it. I don't anymore. What motivates me, what makes me fulfilled is helping people see and live a better life. And the fact that we're able to do that, and because of that, help these companies make millions of more dollars, I feel good about the people part of it. And it works. Like, it is working. And if nothing else, and I don't know about you, I'm sure it may be similar, the stress, the strain, the energy spent to preparing and playing a part as if I'm an actor on Broadway was too much. Like, letting that go and not having to spend energy on that is so freeing. It's so freeing to just let that go.
Because, when you're doing that, you're constantly worried about, am I going to say the right thing? Did I say the right thing? Did I say the wrong thing? Just the current, the constant worry about that. Do I look the right way today? Am I going to be promoted or not? And I mean, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, there's definitely facets of this that still exist in corporate America. So for, say, someone who's been either dealing with the need to do that, or someone who's been conditioned to do it, what are some ways that people can start to bring a more human approach to their work? Like a quick story, when Jen and I were over in London meeting with Adam at Dixon's Car Phone, we were chatting with him, and one of the things he does to really get to know someone on a personal level is he goes out for drinks with them. And in some places like that, that's, again, we don't talk about taboo. He doesn't get them loaded, but he goes out for drinks. Because he's like, when you're just sitting at, what he was saying was when you're sitting at a pub table, just having drinks and chatting, the atmosphere alone takes away, you're out of the work environment. So that work person goes away, and he goes, I can quickly start to see and feel who this person really is. So, hearing you talk, like, this has been something you've always been. I mean, me, on the other hand, I fell into the conditioning early in my career 20 some years ago. And it was probably 10 years ago that I realized that I was, and in some cases I was being a little phony, because I'd been conditioned that you have to have your work persona, and this is only what you could talk about work and whatnot. How do you help someone break out of that?
I mean, I think it's spending some time thinking about, again, the idea of being vulnerable and figuring out how you can become more comfortable with it. And I would say that my answer today is going to be vastly different from just a few months ago, because I think for good, we're kind of being forced, or we have a better framework for being more authentic today, right? And I think it's going to be a little easier right now to start to put that into play, compared to all being back in the office and having this predefined kind of stage laid out for us. And I'm sure many of you that have been doing conference calls are seeing that. And it's one of the outputs that I've just loved about everybody being at home is it's removed this costume. And seeing business executives that work for billion-dollar companies sitting in their home in a t-shirt on webcam is so amazing to me because it makes them human. Seeing them as just a role, a part, and now seeing them sitting in their home and their family in the background or, whatever, it's like they're human. They're human like me. And we're much more able to relate with each other. So we all have that opportunity right now. A lot of the barriers temporarily have been removed. And so I think that the sense of being vulnerable, it's much less so right now. Take advantage of it, right? Take advantage of the fact that we've lost a lot of that forced corporate structure while we're all working remotely. So take advantage of that time because it's not going to be that way forever. And I would say when we go back to some kind of sense of normal, and we're already seeing it in some places here in Utah, people are already going back into the offices. That will change quickly, and we're going to go back to being an actor on a stage wearing a costume and speaking from a script. So I would say be conscious of that and learn what you learned now and continue to put that in play when you go back in. It's going to be uncomfortable. Being vulnerable is uncomfortable, but the upside of doing it is so massive. The upside of being human, of being authentic, outweighs anything that you could ultimately get, from well, am I going to get the raise? Am I going to get the promotion? All that stuff is hollow, and can be taken away from you in an instant. But the fact that you're human and you're making real connections, those are things that are authentic and aren't going to be stolen from you. You're going to keep those things for a lifetime. So focus on that, use this opportunity now and just be authentic. And, I know people want one specific thing that I would ask people to experiment with. And I know people are having all sorts of fun with like the Zoom backgrounds and, all the different things that you can put filters on, your video. Don't do it. Have fun with it and then let it go. You don't need to put a fake cowboy hat on digital. You don't need to like blur out your background and put some fancy bookcase that's just a digital image back there. It's not necessary. And in fact, it's defeating the purpose or the opportunity that we have right now to be authentic. It's okay to just flip on your camera and be in a t-shirt and, sure, I got a stack of papers and it's a mess over here. That's fine. Like, don't overthink it. Just be who you are and be authentic. It's going to create a ton of positive value. So if you're still doing that, have fun with it. Try out all the filters, try out all the backgrounds, and then stop doing it. It's not a positive thing. I know it's fun. I know it's quirky, but it is limiting the value of connecting with other people as humans.
I've seen a couple different variations of it, but like there's the core of like this like comic strip or image that's been circulating. It's a corporate worker, sitting at the kitchen table, on obviously on some kind of video call, and you see them dressed nice from like the head down, so they're wearing like a nice collared shirt and then shorts. And behind them is this perfectly curated background, bookshelf, whatever. You see it everywhere. Everyone's got like the perfectly curated bookshelf, but then everything else around them is a disaster. Kids' toys here, plates piled up there. It's a mess. It's like this is all of us right now.
And it's okay to show that. It really is. And people, again, I think you will find that you will create much more meaningful, authentic relationships when you're willing to be who you are. And when you realize that you can be vulnerable, because the rest of us are too. We don't need to put on the tough guy outfit. And this is completely off topic, and I guess it's good because it aligns with our tangents theme.
I was going to say, is it a tangent?
It is a quick tangent, but more of just an aside that you reminded me of something. Go watch Skid Row Marathon. It's a documentary, and I need to update my documentary list of recommended documentaries. amazing documentary about a judge in LA. But the reason I thought about it is, so he's trying to change the lives of homeless and at-risk people in LA. And he's doing it by creating this marathon club where he goes and he runs with homeless people down in Skid Row in LA. And he's trying to overlay that with his job as a judge that puts a lot of these people in those situations. And the image I can't get out of my head is him on the bench trying to show compassion in his judge robe, in his dress shirt, and then he gets up and walks away, and he's got a pair of runner shorts on and his running shoes on. But you never see it, right? Because it's hidden behind the bench. But he's like, yes, this is who I really am. This is a role I have to play, and I don't really even like the role, but it gives me the opportunity to interact with these people, and that's why I wear the shorts and the shoes, because that's really who I am, right? And
that's really cool.
And even if we're not completely comfortable with wearing the full runner outfit in our work environment, we need to start, to your point, like, what can we do? Start introducing components of it. You know, we don't need to go all out. We don't need to shock the system. We don't need to like purposefully go out and change our image and approach just to like shake up the system. You can start in small places of just introducing some authenticity into what you do. And I think when you do that, you'll be surprised how guarded and shielded you've been from your colleagues, from the rest of your work world, with your personal life. You know, we like to think that we're open and personal, but I think if we really think about it, if we really examine our work world, I think a lot of us will say, wow, you know, I'm spending way too much time curating an image. Mm-hmm. You know, I've missed out on an opportunity here. So start just looking for some small pieces within your day-to-day to just be a little bit more real, a little bit more authentic, and expand from there as you gain some comfort and trust.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, it's something I think I still fight from time to time. You know, am I saying the right thing? Am I giving off the right image? Because it's programming that I know I still have, and I know I'm still trying to fight it.
Yeah, and I think it's a constant thing. But as long as our mind and vision is in the right place, I think what we continue to move toward a better place. And we have to realize that a lot of the people that we're working with are far behind us in that journey, and we need to help them along the way and find opportunities to inject that in. So, but it's hard, you know, it is so ingrained. A couple quick stories, and I know we're running kind of short on time here. But, you know, we see this in everything we do. I think the interview process is the pinnacle of this fakeness of what we show in the business world. I mean, both sides, right? The employer and the employee fake it like you would not believe during that process. And it's interesting. It's like we expect the relationship to be something real, yet the start of our relationship is extremely fake. One thing I started doing when I was a hiring manager at Spark Networks is I would interview people. In fact, they didn't even know I was the hiring manager. They didn't even know I was interviewing them, because I would come and get them in the lobby and say, hey, let's go. You like foosball? Let's go play some foosball for a while. We ended up playing foosball for 15, 20 minutes. Unbeknownst to them, we just had the interview.
Mm-hmm. Because you're helping to break down their guard and see how they do things.
They just broke it down. So, you know, look for those opportunities, Adam, going out with colleagues for drinks. Look for those opportunities to break down those barriers. And the last thing that I would add is, if you are a hiring manager, please take this to heart, that you should look for what people are doing within the organization much more heavily than the role they are playing. Last story. I was at Omniture. I wanted to be promoted. I was never going to get promoted at Omniture. I didn't fit the corporate image that they wanted me to be. I ended up going and talking to the director of the organization, and he flat out told me, this is never going to happen here unless you're willing to play the role. And he's like, I would start by cleaning up your dress. T-shirt and jeans is not going to cut it if you want to be in management here. You need to clean up your dress. So being the flippant kind of FU.
You wore shorts to work, didn't you?
No, I wore a tie and a button-down shirt and slacks, and I completely dressed it up. I didn't say a word to anybody. I just did it. Being the natural leader, do you want to guess what happened as a result of it?
People started following along with what you were doing.
Yeah. The organization, like so many people in the team started wearing a tie, and then people were trying to outdo each other and wear suits and full on, like, just to the next level. And the director of the team finally called me back and he's like, all right, I get it. You know, you don't need to rub it in my face. Like, I get it. You're just being flippant here. I'm like, I haven't talked to any of these people. He's like, just make it stop. Just make it stop, dude. So if you're in that position, you know, stop. You know, stop with the charm school. Stop with, you know, sure, there's one thing about being just a decent person and having some refinement. That's not what I'm talking about. You know, stop forcing people to play a role. Stop forcing people. This is the most important part. Stop forcing people to be clones. We're not clones. We're individuals. It's that individuality that makes us amazing. It's that rawness, that vulnerability that makes us human. And by being human, we can connect on deeper levels. And if nothing else, it makes those relationships fulfilling. But we have proven through our work that it's those authentic relationships that make business success truly possible. So I will leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great place to wrap up, because I've got nothing more to add.
Awesome. I love the conversation. It's a good one.
Yeah, this was a good one. Because the recent events, I think, have really pushed people to drop those facades and really kind of share what's going on and the after effects of which. Because I think that the one thing we didn't get to touch on with this is just, you know, not just showing who you are, but like that you're not just a machine to churn out work. That these are stressful times and they're impacting everybody differently. Yeah. And we need to be there for others who are struggling right now for one reason or for multiple reasons. We're not just cogs in a wheel.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to say it. Couldn't agree more.
I think I think we need to have a follow up and talking more about just like being human at work part 2, talking about like, you know, being aware of, you know, people being, you know, impacted and that they're not just here to be a clone or to just, you know, stamp out a widget every day. Yeah.
Treat people as humans.
Exactly. Cool, man. Well, thank you much.
Thanks, Jim. This was awesome.
All right. Catch you later.
Bye.